Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorry we are a little bit late today. Yours truly was hanging out in a different Zoom link, right? So that happens sometimes. Hey, everybody, we're going to give a couple minutes here, just let everybody jump in. I hope everybody is doing well. If this is your first time, I super excited that you guys have jumped on. We're going to be talking about branding today. Make sure everybody's got their mics muted. We will have a Q&A section towards the end of the event. Also, if you want to join the Q&A section, you can see here in the meeting chat, I've got an after party link if you guys want to jump over there. We'll be taking questions, and also inside of the little after party link there, I put out content that's exclusive just to that group almost every other day or so. So a lot of stuff you can do there. Also, if you're interested in purchasing all of the trainings that we do here, that first link up there is called Hacking Your Startup. And you can order that now. It's a 12 module set. We go over basically one of these a month, and we jump into the weeds of what it takes to sort of hack your startup, how you do things in today's world. All right, buddy. Hey, we're going to jump into it. So if you guys don't know me, my name is Jeff Fuzzy Wenzel. I am the CEO of Pre-IPO Hype. I have been in the startup fundraising world almost 15, 16 years now. Started in the Kickstarter space, ended up running about 350 or so on Kickstarters and Indiegogos. I ran a lot of them, basically. In fact, I ended up on the cover of Cranes. You can see it back here over here. Ended up on the cover of Cranes for the amount of Kickstarters we ran. So from there, ended up moving into equity crowdfunding. So that's where I work the most now, typically working in Reg CFs, Reg Ds, Reg As, and helping startups sort of navigate those waters. So what this is Innovate Farmington. I live in Farmington, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. Some of you guys that are local, this group has been around for almost 10 years. I took it over about 5 years ago, sort of pre-pandemic, and I do these types of trainings now monthly. Yeah, so this is what we do here. So again, like I said, if it's your first time, I'm super excited that you jumped in. So today we're going to be talking all about branding, kind of expectations, kind of some of my thought patterns on it. Branding is a very large and encompassing sort of thought, right? Like, it could equal a bunch of stuff. We get a lot of people who think branding equals marketing. And for me, not so much. I think branding is its own animal inside of your company. So with all that said, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about how to build that out. Like I said, if you are signing up for our module course, this is module 2. And if you're interested in module 1 that we talked about last week, you guys can sign up for that too. We talked about just kind of what it takes to sort of spy on competitors and building your brand. So that was last month. All right, let's jump into it. So what is really branding? So for me, branding is a couple things. Branding to me is what people think about you, how you register in their mind. It is not what you think you are. So that to me is one of the biggest differences from my approach to branding to kind of how a lot of people talk about it around me. They keep talking about like, hey, I want to control my brand. I want to control this. And to me, branding is how people feel about you. Every time you end up in their inbox, how do they feel? Every time you send a message out, how does it make that person feel, right? That to me is what a brand is. Now we can get into the weeds on, colors and logos and fonts and consistency. But for almost every single company I work with, I don't think that they actually have a brand. They are a young startup company. Now, Coca-Cola has a brand. Pepsi has a brand. Apple has a brand aesthetic, but they are gigantic. So for almost every other company, when you are way, way smaller than that, or you're just getting started out, it really is more how are people feeling when you start knocking on their doors with your marketing messages. So that is definitely something that I know that I have had some back and forth on with clients. They come to me and they show me their logo that they built in Canva, or that somebody they hired on Upwork, and they go, that's my brand. This is my brand. That's just a logo. A logo also isn't a brand. The other big sort of thing to be thinking about kind of as we navigate through this is for almost everybody I'm working with, um, the brand is really the personality behind the scenes, that front man to the brand, or that front, like think about a front man to a band, right? Think about those two things there. Somebody who's sort of leading the charge. So in my world, I own that. I put out a lot of content. It almost 99% of it comes from me. It's my humor. It's my energy that I'm putting out there. And a pattern that we're starting to see more and more in companies that are becoming successful is this idea that there isn't so much this division between personal CEO and company. Obviously, it exists as you get bigger and bigger, but for most people at this stage of the game, you really do want to be focusing on what is that personal person that's putting out the messages. When the emails go out, the newsletters go out, the social goes out, who is really the person behind it that's that aesthetic that it's coming from? So we start getting that in mind. We think about authenticity in a lot of this, right? And that's where people invest from. That's where people will buy from. They buy from authenticity. They buy from feeling like I've been inspired by this. This is an influencer in this space. I know that they know what they're talking about. So that is where we see people thinking. And even if this is in B2B, right, there still even is that connection. I get that all the time too, like, yeah, but I'm B2B and that's just not how it works. Yeah, but there is still somebody behind that business that ultimately is pulling that trigger, and there is a feeling and an emotion that happens to it. Um, you know, Other things to think about too is really try to imagine what that first impression is. I do a lot of cold outreach. I do a lot of knocking on doors, and I describe that as very similar to politics world of going door to door, right? Like, you don't know me, you have no idea who I am. I'm knocking on that door, and there is an energy or a vibe that must come off of you at that moment, right? And that is a first impression. Even right now, for some of you that have jumped on this and don't know me, you're getting a first impression. How do I make you feel? Do I make you feel like you're learning something? Am I talking down to you? Do you feel like I'm an idiot? Like, are the glasses distracting? Whatever it is, there is something in that first impression. So I say all that because as you, again, apply some of these things that we're talking about today into what you do, how are you making people feel when you send that first message, that first LinkedIn thing, that first newsletter, that first Facebook ad, right? That first impression, how are making people feel? And then you get into how hard this is, right? We're talking about, it's an incredibly noisy world right now. So how are you getting into that space and creating that? Now, I will tell you too, one of the pushbacks that I get quite a bit is, what tends to be working in social to get engagement, to get clicks, to get, awareness, tends to be sometimes controversial, sometimes a current trend. And a lot of companies stop me and go, whoa, 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 I don't want to send that meme out. I don't want that. I don't want that spelling error in there, even though that's a trend in a lot of these things. Like, I don't want these things because that's not my brand. I have this brand. And I come back and I go, well, cool, but your brand is going to just fall into to the noise. And I'm trying to at least get you to that next level. So that is always a push and pull, especially in today's world when, you see memes and trends sort of pushing into potential boundary areas where you're like, oh, I just don't know if I want my brand attached to that. The flip side to that is you're probably just going to be, one of a million emails that went out that day. Like, are you going to really stand out? So that's another thing to really be thinking about is how do you kind of position your brand, your personality inside of that brand, as well as adopting, meme trends or trends that are happening in today's social world so that you're sort of catching that wave and not just throwing a little pebble into that wave, if that makes sense. So kind of moving on here, we're going to just keep jumping into this. Another big part of how I approach this, consistency. Quite a bit. Again, I'll describe kind of a tug and pull that I have quite a bit with clients is we would describe this as they're in perfect post syndrome. They are in, we're going to send out 3 LinkedIn messages and they are going to be so perfectly crafted that the tidal wave of people are going to just just overwhelm us. And I've never seen that happen in 10 or 12 years of doing this. So I approach it with consistency. I approach it with a schedule. I approach it with, every Tuesday I send out a newsletter. At first Tuesday of every month, I do an event like this. Every Friday, I do my 5 for Friday. I have been doing what I just described for years and years and years. I am consistent with it. There's also a consistency of the tone of it, right? They're almost every single thing has either been created by me or I inspired it, and I might have used somebody to help create it. So I am pushing that out, and that is now becoming that's the tone. That's what I am sending out to people, and I'm doing it all the time. I don't do this like, here's a whole bunch of stuff and then disappear for a month. Here's a whole bunch of stuff and then disappear for 2 months. There's no consistency in that, and people, forget about you. It's that simple. The other thing that I want in my world for my brand, when I describe my brand, my aesthetic, my thought patterns, is I want to meet people wherever they might be. And that could be a lot of places and it can be overwhelming. But what I think that I have to do is I have to make myself, my brand, my feelings sticky, meaning that when the time comes, in whatever you're selling, there's a time and a place that you have to meet that person's need. You have to somehow pop up there. And I hear this quite a bit. I have really good timing in my brand. I know when I should pull that lever and reach out to you based on certain things. So you have to really think about that too, is making sure that you are showing up. You're meeting your brand and that moment right when that person might think, I need this. And you're the one that provides the answer to that, right? So as we kind of keep going on, you can also think about, brand architect. Again, for probably this call, we don't need to get so far into there. I mean, typically that's going to be how you are, how you're building out your brand. I will show you kind of what I do in my space, just so you guys have a sense of it, because I have a version of this. And even for myself, it's still growing and changing. That's another thing, is like, I also don't subscribe to this idea that your brand is just, once you set it and it's just, you set it and forget it. Society changes, the world's changing, people are changing, so the brand aesthetic sometimes has to change and kind of move along with that to some degree. But in my world, I have an agency brand, and that is described as Pre-IPO Hype, and I'll show you what this all looks like here in just a little bit here. That is all about fundraising and automation, and it's this type of stuff. Like technically right now, you are in my Pre-IPO Hype brand. However, this is a part of Innovate Farmington, and that's just because I have a local tie to this region, to this event, and this is how I've kind of taken it over, and I'm running this. So that's a little bit of a sub, or like a little hybrid below Pre-IPO Hype. But then I have my personal side of it. Some of you might have got an email from my personal, because we've either met, talked, and I think, hey, we've met, you know me. I think you should come to this thing that I'm doing on Tuesday. And then I have a whole separate brand called Invest Guru, and that is just all investors. That is just all investors, and I'm just literally talking about crowdfunding and fundraising and opportunities to invest. So each one of those has its own look, feel. There's, in the Venn diagram, there's some overlap, but they are doing their own thing with their own purpose as we kind of go through this. And again, I'll show you these examples here in just a second, so you guys can get a good sense of it. And the other part of this is, like, you should be in a constant audit, maybe not every day or every week, but definitely once a year. I kind of look at my world and go, do I look outdated? Am I keeping up with trends? Do my blogs say something that's like, we're not doing that anymore? So I'm always auditing to make sure that I'm not missing the mark or I'm missing it. So again, you may agree upon a logo or a color choice or a brand guide, but the feeling that you're making people feel, that might change based on timing, politics, the world, right? So again, you're always kind of looking and just double checking and going, do I look modern? Do I look like what the world looks like today right now. Again, I can't stress this enough. I get a lot of companies sending me, pitch decks that look like they're from 2003, websites that look like, graphic design, where I'm like, dude, what plan are you on? And it can be challenging because, again, as you might either get older in age or you might be more and more disconnected from trends or how people are consuming, you might be coming at this with just a look and a feel that we are not associating with in today's world. And again, that can be a real challenge. So again, that's this balance too in a lot of branding is making sure that you look like you're in today's world and not like an AOL website from 20 years ago, right? So that can be quite a bit as well. Now we can get into just kind of just the nuts and bolts, right? Like, what are important elements? Well, obviously a logo, right? We all have to have some sort of logo. And there's many places you can go to. You could go to Canva. You could go to companies like Logo AI. Again, a logo is not a brand. A logo is just something. It's to put on your Facebook. It's to me. I hear this all the time. It's like this is my brand. No, that's a logo, man. That's completely different uh, than a brand. It's a part of your brand, but it is just a logo. So you have to also imagine too, like very few companies found their logo immediately, right? Even I will say, out of anything I struggle with, I do struggle with logos, looks and feels, color palettes. I find that it doesn't matter as much as the feeling that I give people, right? I have never had anybody say, man, you know what? I learned so much from my 30-minute call with you. But I wish your logo had a little bit more orange in it. I really thought you were like a color. Like nobody's ever said that, right? So again, I lean a lot more on feeling. But yes, a logo has to be a part of your brand guide. It should, you know, um, tell somebody pretty quickly, what you do. I will also say too, inside of that, you don't want it to be so busy that like, people it doesn't look good or it doesn't print well. And then after that, you want to think a little bit around tone and voice. You want to think about colors, fonts, potential images that you might be putting on your website. Um, you know, I will also say this too. One of the best things that mindset wise that I switched into is literally going to the things that I love and mimicking it, right? Not copying and pasting it, but mimicking it and going, I love this design palette. I'll take it, switch up my colors a little bit. Just start there and let it start to grow from that, right? So start with what you like out in the world, and honestly, kind of fake it till you make it, right? So really look at like, sign up for a bunch of different newsletters, get a vibe and a tone from them, and go, man, I really like this, and then copy what they're doing, and then start adding in your work into it. Colors, fonts, all this sort of stuff. I will tell you, I think yes, this stuff is important. Um, but I also think it's something that can come a little bit down the road. Again, I shy and I encourage everybody, please don't be in perfect logo syndrome. Start work, start putting your stuff out there, start getting feedback, and then start to make some of those adjustments. I'm in it right now. So again, for some of you that may or may not know my story, is went through a really crappy last year. Company hired me, didn't pay me for 6 months. It just blew up on me, right? And I had to quickly turn up a new agency. I was an agency previously, but it just unraveled on me. So we, created this agency, and truthfully, I just was like, we have to just get this off the ground and get going right now. And then from there, I've started to make tweaks and changes. And even right now, if any of you go to pre-IPOhype.com today, I guarantee you in probably another 30 days, you're going to see the next switch up. And I'm feeling like I'm going to move to this next thing of what I think it should be. But there is still something there right now. So again, yes, it's important to have these things, but you should be thinking other ways. After that, last month, I should say, we talked a lot about buyer personas. We're not going to get too far in the weeds of that. Again, if you want to dive into that, you can go to that first link right now, the Hacking Your Startup course. And we can get all into buyer personas, but buyer personas may or may not play into sometimes your logos. Hey, I know I'm only targeting, men in my product, or I'm only targeting women, or whatever it might be. You might make some choices along those lines. But again, we'll buyer personas. We talked a ton of, we talked for an hour last month about that. So we're going to kind of move on from that. Past that, we're going to talk a little bit about workflows and what that means. So as you get into workflows, you want to start to think about how in those workflows is your brand being connected. Let's see if we can pull up an example of one here, right? So this is a mind map of a workflow of how organic is happening, how content creation is happening. So I'll zoom in here in just a second. So let's just theoretically say, like, okay, I want to have a podcast, right? Right. So inside of that will be your long form content, there is going to be podcast logo, look, feel, a description, how the links are, what is it housed on, what's the URL, right? So there's going to be an entire brand aesthetic attached to long form content. Now, you're also going to have short form content off of that. Okay. I want to make sure Zoom's not bugging out on me. I am hardwired in here, but I look like I'm a little slow here. Hey, can you guys give me a thumbs up if you guys are still hearing me all right? I want to just double check before I keep getting into it. Maybe in the old chat there. See. Oh, I think we might be back. All right, I think we're all right. Zoom just got a little laggy on me. So if we're in long form content here, right? So that's your podcast. You're going to have a brand, a look, and a feel all around that. Then from every podcast, you have short form content. So for every time I make a podcast, yesterday I recorded an hour conversation. That content is now put into a tool called Opus AI, and it's making all my short form content. And now inside of there, there's a brand. Now, for me, in these two buckets, there's colors, there's the fonts, how the captions are, emojis I use quite a bit. But ultimately, I am still in the brand, right? So it's really my tone, my personality. Even this content that I'm making right now will be long form, and then I will chop that down into short form. So there's a brand look and a feel around there, around how long are the podcasts, how consistent are they, when do they come out? Again, we get into some of that consistency portion of it. So then you take, in this workflow, you're going to have your content. You're going to then dump them into all the different social channels. Now, here's one of the biggest mistakes that I see quite a bit, and it's one that even I make it in today's world, is every one of the platforms that you choose has best practices, look, feel, how the content is made, vertical, horizontal, how each one handles SEO and hashtags. Each platform houses content differently. So that really means each one of the channels that you're pushing your content to is going to have some brand aesthetic as well. Let's just take hashtags as an example, right? So each one of these are going to have different, different hashtags are going to be in here, right? TikTok, you might have 20 hashtags. LinkedIn, you might have one, right? So what are the hashtags? Well, there's brand aesthetic to even those hashtags as you get into it. Are you making vertical contact? Yeah, so we're looking at, is it going to be a 9:16 type of content? Well, there might be a look and a feel there. Maybe you recorded your podcast this way, but now when you chop it up, you've hurt your brand aesthetic because now the content's not in the right way. So, and then from there, you might want to push everybody into one opt-in page. Well, what is the data that you need on this opt-in page? First name, last name, email address, phone number. Do you need the phone number? Are you doing SMS? I don't know, right? So is there some branding now on this website? The colors, look, feel. Are you on it? Are you positioning yourself in it? Is there a resource that you're sending them, right? So they opt in, and now you're going to send them 10 reasons why. There's something you're trading an email for a resource. Well, now there's going to need to be branding on that PDF that you send them, right? Do you move people into a community or a schooling, right? If or a group? Well, now inside of here, you've got to have a look, a feel, a brand, maybe even a special logo here, right? So, when you guys hear me here say hacking your startup, that is this portion. And this would be a sub brand off of the main pre-IPO hype. right? And then now, hey, they book a call with me. What is that aesthetic? Do I send a lot of messages that warm them, remind them? Do I send one? Do I send SMS? When I get on the call, what is the feeling and the vibe, right? Is it Zoom? Is it Google Meet? Is it just a phone call, right? All of those, there is everything that you do kind of positions yourself as your brand, right? you know, and then when you start to kind of get into, we're just going to kind of take another more step into the workflow until we go back to our document here. Imagine that you are doing 10 videos a day across all of your channels, right? To get attention. That's great. But that's a lot of opportunity to, trip and fall and not be presented in the best light. So again, it's important, but you do have to also be comfortable. Like, all right, we might send something out that's just not exactly what I wanted, but hey, we got some attention from it. So again, each one of these are going to be buckets of opportunity to brand. And I'm gonna stay here for just a minute longer here, because I also think the other important thing too is kind of how content's flowing right now, and then how branding for your company fits into it, right? So for me, I want inspirational branded content from every one of my issuers. I need people to be aware that you exist. I cannot stress this enough. Nobody is looking for you. You are looking for them, right? There's nobody out searching for you. It's how do you get attention and awareness? How are you making people feel like an insider? How are you making feel like you're top of the trend that you're in, as an influencer in the space, right? Like how are you making people feel that? And that's becoming your brand, right? I put out a lot of inspirational content. I'm trying to show people, hey, think about it this way, think about it that way, try this. So you think that's the type of content that, what can you be making with your brand, your look, your feel, your personalities from here? And then from that, hopefully people start to explore, right? So they now will start to click on more stuff. So you're starting to create that connection point to say, I'm going to dive in. I'm going to give some more of my time to this. From there, you want to move people into community. We just talked about a little bit about branding around community. And this is, again, these are things like, what can you be partnering with that's adjacent to your brand that, again, you want to attach your brand to their brand, right? And what does that look like? That you can have giveaways for, or exclusive content, or pop-up events. What can coincide with what you do that elevates your brand off of maybe this more established brand, right? So that can be happening in your community. And then from there, that's where you start to see loyalty, in my opinion. That's where people start to attach their pocketbooks potentially to your brand. That's where you start to see loyalty. Or people start to advocate. They can start going, man, this is, these are the best potato chips I've ever had. This is the best licorice I ever had. I don't know, just using that as an example, right? It's because you've attached experience to that brand. So again, lots of ways to be thinking about this, but this is how you start to really think about, in these workflows, how is your brand fitting into it? And again, logo is just a thing, colors are just a thing, this kind of the frame that you're putting in this messaging, this tone, this feel, right? So we're gonna just kind of keep going on. I also really, I can't stress this enough too, like, how are you personalizing everything that you do right now? Long gone are the days of just a generic sort of blanket, megaphone type of outreach. Almost everything in my world is very, very personalized. And I hear this quite a bit. People really feel like I sent them that message. Even down to, if you are in my newsletter, I still have my footer at the bottom. So it does, seem like you are getting a personal message from me. And AI is helping us right now. There's if you use a tool like Lemlist, you can write custom icebreakers based on their last LinkedIn post. You can connect ChatGPT-4 on LinkedIn. You can use a Chrome extension, and you can personalize every single comment. You can use tools like SendSpark and do a personal video message to every single person on your list. So this is that next layer of branding, is putting that personalization inside of your brand, so people feel like Jeff Fuzzy Wenzel is connecting with me. Um, Very, very few people want to connect to a brand logo, right? Like it's just nobody thinks that way. They want to connect to some human being as we're going through it. And then after that, I was, I'm not a designer. That is definitely not my strong suit. I know what I like in terms of aesthetic. But this is where I always try to work with a really good designer that I can ooze out this type of information I'm talking about right now. I can speak about this stuff for myself, give it to somebody like that, and have them template out my world in like a Canva. Again, I'm not a designer, so I use Canva quite a bit, right? It's so drag and drop. But if I can get the foundation built and the pieces, then I can have myself, or a lot of times my wife, just go in and make these small adjustments because I have a lot of the assets and the template. So I always think that's a strong thing too. If that's not in your wheelhouse, find that person that can take this version that you're putting together and give you the assets that you need. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep jumping into this. All right, kind of moving on. You know, Also too, I would say, the central source of truth. I always dig this one. The amount of stuff that I throw away is through the roof. Which is why I do not subscribe to some sort of perfect post, perfect blog, perfect anything. I just don't. I just don't believe in it. I think almost if I'm making, a bunch of content, I'm going to probably throw away a majority of it. Actually, let's go back over here. I'm going to show you this here. You know, so I produce every week 100 pieces of content. From this thing that I am doing right now, this will produce me at least 60 to 75 pieces of content is going to come off of this hour-long presentation or this Zoom call. And I use automation and AI. Zapier, Make are the tools I use. I use ChatGPT and Claude. So everything that I do, because it's me and my brand, can become a piece of content, right? So right now, you guys are really kind of in this one right here. I got on a call. I said, get on a call. All of that is going to be created into vertical clips. So the up and down clips, stories, reels, whatever you want to call them, they're all going to get transcribed. They're all going to go into custom prompts in ChatGPT, and then that's going to give me a bunch of stuff that I can proofread or edit to make sure nothing stupid comes out. And that gives me the opportunity for next week to grab all the different pieces of content that I want to use for text, carousels, ads, whatever it might be. So that's a shift too that I find a lot of people struggle with is jumping into everything that you do can be a piece of content. Check. How about now? Is that working? I can see it. Come on, Zoom. Checkity check. Anybody? Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Oh, yay, we did it. Woo. All right. We navigated that. This is actually an interesting part too. A lot of times when I do podcasts, and again, we all have glitches in the tech world. I don't even know. I can see it. It's kind of, well, I don't even know what it's doing right now. The amount of people who are like, we got to edit that out. We got to clean that up. And I go, no, no, no. We're human. Like, leave that in. Nobody's going to care. It actually shows that, hey, we're trying. This is not some piece of content that's going to go on the, on the big screen. This is like, hey, you know, we're making content. You may or may not hear it. So again, I also find too that the more that you can be authentic in all of this, people register with that so much more than again the polished piece that just yeah. So again, even in all of that, right? So we take this as a snapshot too. Like I could go in and I'm gonna edit this down and I'm gonna crossfade it. I'm gonna make it and then zoom back. Nobody cares, right? So again, now I will say that that's my brand aesthetic. You can come back and go, I will never put out something like that. It's got to be this perfect. That may be you. I just don't know how that works in today's world of like you just gotta put content out all the time and be sticky. So all right, moving on, kind of essential truth. I also think too, also organization helps out quite a bit here, especially as your team grows. So again, making sure you have your assets organized. Hey, this is our logo that we're using right now. These are the brand, the coloring, all that sort of stuff. So again, making sure that people are always using it, that helps quite a bit too around, not sending out something that's like, oh, that, that's not what I wanted to go to have on there. So yeah, so just thinking about that quite a bit there too. I'm gonna kind of jump along here a little bit more. And then also, I've got a potential client that I think is getting ready to jump on board here, and we're having a lot of conversations because we're going to be merging two really large brands together, and I'll share some of my conversations have been like it's we don't really know what's going to happen. There's one company, it's got like 1 million Facebook followers. The other company's got like 30,000, right? So we're always defaulting. However, we don't want to be overshadowed by this brand. So that's the other part too, is when you start getting into collaborations, it can get challenging to kind of, try to get your brand in there, your feelings, your look and your feel. And sometimes you have to, I would say, let them take charge and know that you're really riding some coattails for a little while. And hopefully you're building your brand up and getting new followers off of their brand. And sometimes you just got to take a back seat and go, I don't know if I would have wrote it that way, but okay, we'll just roll with that. So sometimes that has to be a part of this too. There's sometimes has to be a little bit of a give and take when you get into kind of bigger collaborations. All right, last but not least, we're going to get into a couple more things here about sort of social listening. And I think this is one of the biggest parts of knowing your brand. It's actually shutting up. Yep. It's stop talking about what you think it is and start listening to how people talk about you. And then lean into that. That's the other part of this. Don't fight them. So I think I even started this whole session with that mindset around your brand is what people think of you, right? What they talk about with you, not what you're saying. So with that in mind, you start getting into like social listening tools. Brand mentions is a good one. Like, sign up for this, put it on your account. It starts to follow all your social. Another tool I use is a tool called Comment Guard. Here would be an example of one, right? Comment Guard is literally watching my Facebook, Instagram pages, my ads, and it's putting in here what are people talking about. And you start to get information from listening to what people are talking about, right? And are there good and bad, right? Are there things that you can pull from this? Are there testimonials that you can pull? So these types of tools, this type of social listening really helps with a lot of your content creation as well, and things that you might not have thought about. I can't stress that enough to the amount of times people are like, I had no idea it was going to be like this, and then all these people kept saying it, so I leaned into it, right? So again, Comment Guard, really nice tool to add to all your social channels and just do some listening. And if not, you can try this tool here called Brand Mentions. So again, social listening, super important. Starting to look at your metrics, and This one to me, I kind of go back and forth on this. I don't know for any of you that might follow me on TikTok, you might have saw I had a video go did pretty well the other day around how I really believe that return on investment is killing branding, right? And so what do I mean by that? I have never once, ever, and this has got to be 20 years of me doing any sort of marketing, whether it's my band days to right now, around I don't know if I should send this email out because or this newsletter or this Facebook post if the return on investment isn't like 5 times it. I've never once thought about that. Now, again, I'm not doing anything stupid. I'm not applying that same knowledge to Facebook ads. I'm not saying, hey, I'm gonna spend $50,000 in Facebook ads and we'll see. Even though sometimes you have to do that as well, you gotta raise that brand awareness up. Um, so the amount again, I get a lot of people who are like, hey Jeff, we're going to send out, X amount of emails. I want to know what my return on investment is. Well, it might be the first time they're hearing you, second time, third time. So you have to also think about a lot of this. Not exactly sure there's going to be a perfect ROI on logo design or your colors or, sending out emails, right? Sometimes you just got to do that to get some, that energy in to then really start to make decisions and see how people are feeling at the end of the day from what you're sending them, starting to basically read the room a little bit. So I'm going to encourage a lot of people to really unplug return on investment from branding, right? And think of it more as how am I educating? I am not making a dime from this event right now. Like I'm not making a dime. I wanted to spend an hour with my world. I want to get feedback. I want to take questions. I want hopefully people to join some of my groups, right? If you want to buy my modules, that's great. It's $97. If not, whatever. So I'm not looking at right now as a return on investment. I look at the whole big picture of this is my aesthetic. I put out education, right? I put myself out there. I meet people. I don't know most of you on this call, so I don't, hey, maybe you want to work with me, maybe not, but I shared some information. So I think the more that you can lean into that, you find that it really is, it really can be very, very rewarding. So let's talk about a couple examples of this, and then we're going to wrap up for today. So I'm going to give you guys a company to follow. If you don't follow the company Beehive, and that's B-E-E. Hive is spelled though with 2 I's, Hiiv. The CEO there is a guy named Tyler Dank. He is a master at personal branding, company branding, and this is his newsletter. It's called Big Desk Energy. Now they just raised, I think, $33 million in a Series B. They, even just look right now, right? Everything has this old I guess old Apple vibe, right, from back in the day. But he puts out great content. He's constantly sharing resources on how he's raised X amount of dollars. He is really kind of we're all following right now. One of the things that he talked about, I don't even know, this must be a few weeks ago, and he's spot on with what he said here. Raising capital is now completely associated with who your brand is and the vibe and the energy you're feeling. It used to be that fundraising was its own animal over here, and you just kind of did it on the side, and you kind of had special content for your investors, and you just you kept them over here. Not seeing that right now. Where I'm seeing success is when the brand is part of the fundraising and you're raising the whole big picture up, and there's just so much energy on it. So again, this company just finished up raising $33 million in a Series B, went over to WeFunder and oversubscribed within like 3 hours. Guys like me are using it, and they've got a lot of traction. But when you dive into this world, all the emails come from Tyler. Now, did he really write them? Of course not, right? But you feel this connection to what they're doing, right? And I, not knowingly subscribe to almost all of this by just that same sort of mindset. So, so again, every Tuesday I get his newsletter. Every Tuesday I read it. I follow him on his social channels. His look and feel is spot on. And he's got great tagging, so I can, if I want to look at more stories, I can go into here and read all the different stories. So it's done really, really, really well. And again, you can go check out their success for it. I'll show you another version of this. I kind of mentioned, so so I have 3 different newsletters ultimately at the end of the day. So this is my personal one. Anybody who's booked a call with me, anybody who I've met over the last 5 years, you are in this group. Now, for me in this group, I share posts that are a little bit more personal. I might share a bourbon or a cigar that I've enjoyed. And the branding is all me. Hello, hello, hello. This is me, right? This is, and for me, this one is not about big numbers. I am not here trying to, again, my return on investment for my personal one. No, this is my ROI on this is me personally. Like I am keeping these engagements connecting, right? I keep connecting with you, especially in my world. I have a very long sales cycle. Like you could talk to me today and want to do fundraising 2 years from now. Okay, I just don't want to disappear in your world. So again, that ROI for this one completely different. I just want to keep connecting. But then I have this newsletter called The Lowdown, and this one is all startup founders, CEOs. I'm giving out tips and tricks, and these are the things I wrote a thing today on why you should learn Figma. This one has a specific audience. This one is housed, if we think about that, the branding house, it's housed a little bit under Pre-IPO Hype, the core company, because that audience is kind of the same, right? You're a startup founder. So like, if any of you guys wanted to be in a newsletter, I would actually put you in the Lowdown because it's educational based. It's a lot of this conversation, stretched apart into different newsletters. And then I have Invest Guru. So this one is literally just all crowdfunding, fundraising deals, investment, right? These are investors that have opted in, and they just want to see deals that are happening in the crowdfunding space. Now, I am still attached to each one of these, but to various degrees. Fuzzy Wenzel, this one, it comes from me. Hey, Buzz is in my inbox again. I wonder what he's up to. I wonder how he's doing. I just listened to his podcast. I heard about his kid. Like it's that sort of a feeling. You get something from the Lowdown, there's action items. You should. Oh, he talked about what did I send out today? Here, let's pull it up here. I haven't even looked at this one yet. Let's go to here. Uh, so like I had a call to action down here around how to use PayPal as a down here it is, how to use PayPal as a cold sales channel, like an email channel, right? So right here, like how you can literally hack PayPal. So there's an action item that's attached to this newsletter. So you should get this one on Tuesday and go, I'm going to go try the thing that Jeff suggested in my world, right? And like I said, and then the Invest Guru one is just literally going to be all about, that one just went out a little bit ago. So this one's going to, the other one, the Lowdown, is going to be all about, here's 3 new campaigns that just launched. So again, there's very specific reasons as to why you're in whatever bucket you're in, so that I can control that brand and that ability to storytell inside of there. I can control the energy and the feelings and the vibes that I want you to have when I pop up in your inbox. So when I knock on that door, basically, I want to know why I'm walking through it with a very succinct message. Awesome. All right, everybody. I hope this stuff all helps, or I hope it just kind of shifts or changes your mind a little bit, or puts you in a mindset about branding and maybe some different ways to think about it. Yourself. Yeah, if you want to ask a question in the old chat, feel free. Otherwise, we can also do a Q&A. If you scroll to the chat, you can see that second one, Q&A after party. I'm actually going to be heading from here over into that portal. So if you want to put your questions here, we can ask, or you want to put them over there for the group. Either way. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them on, and we'll jump into it. give it a couple more minutes here. Let me actually go over to the portal, see if anybody's over there. I just realized something too, that one of the coolest like little things we did recently for a client is that we were getting just slammed with bad comments on Facebook. So they've got a very trendy product, and every Facebook post was like, "This is stupid," just trolls basically. So we flipped and we took a lot of these trolls messages and we put them in the ads. So we kind of leaned into it a little bit, and our ads completely changed in terms of positive because we were sort of calling out the trolls, right? And we were hitting it head on. Now, again, that was a pretty ballsy move, so I appreciated the brand or the company being willing to kind of play ball like that and say, yeah, fine, let's do it, let's try it. Another company that does that really well is Liquid Death. Good amount of like case studies out there around how Liquid Death has like takes all of the troll world about, if you don't know them, they're canned water. Takes any of that type of people just being right, and ripping on it, and take that and put that into your ad copy or put that into your emails. It's nice. I'm probably getting ready to do one too. One of my last talks, a guy was like, "I would take you a lot more seriously if you didn't wear those stupid glasses," or some comment like that. So I'm gonna take that, call him out, put it into the content, and make it a thing here. So, all right. So I don't see any more questions. Like I said, hey, if you guys want, jump in the link. It's free over there. If you want to jump into the old Hacking Your Startup group, we've got I put a lot of content over there too. And but yeah, I appreciate everybody showing up. We will be doing this again next week, or excuse me, next week. Sorry, next month, first Tuesday in August. Man, it's already August. That's crazy. For everybody else, but if you guys have any questions, have anything else